Absolutely, Steve and Juliana, thank you very much for inviting me. They're indeed very important. Very recently, with the advent of electric vehicles, the sector has received what I like to call a tsunami of demand. Really, of the 17 different elements, you basically need to remember 4 of them, no? 2 light rare earths that are neodymium and praseodymium, and they're important because the neodymium magnet is the most powerful magnet in the world relative to its size and weight. And the other 2 are dysprosium and terbium, and they're important because they are the most scarce ones, and they are added to the magnets in order to ensure that they can sustain high temperatures. So an electric vehicle that has a motor that runs at around 200 degrees Celsius requires these 4 elements in order to perform. Now that's just the beginning, because adding to electric vehicles you have wind turbines, you have drones that today are toys, but eventually they're going to be carrying weights and passengers, and eventually also robotics.
Which they're doing in the appalling Russo-Ukraine war as well. Okay, so that's the original backdrop. Now, education part 2. They're not rare, are they? Rare earths aren't rare.
Well, that's a great question, because they are indeed not rare, but if they are not rare, then why are they critical, no? And the answer to that is each of these 17 elements has its own business case, no? We need to understand them individually and not as a whole. And the fact is that especially heavy rare earths are rather rare, no, in comparison. I can give you just a data point, no?
Yeah, no, please do.
There are some rare earths, like the ones you mentioned, lanthanum, cerium, for example, they sell for $1 a kilo, while there are others, like the ones I described, for example, terbium sells for $1,000 a kilo. Because, again, they are relatively more scarce.
And the third part of the education, before you get on to the investing questions, I'm sure, from Juliana, is even though they're not rare and they have this wide variance in value per kilo, the fact of the matter is there is one country that dominates the supply of these globally. That is China, and we need to de-risk in the West to a certain degree.
Absolutely. China has discovered the powers of rare earths since the 1970s, and they have been developing quite aggressively their industry. I like to say China is a formidable competitor, and they have prepared very well for this situation.
Brazil, meanwhile, has, I understand, the world's second largest rare earth reserves after China. Why has the West been slow to develop these resources when China has been so quick and been at it for so many years?
Yes, the main reason is because most of the applications of rare earths historically have been rather niche, applications. But now, as I mentioned, with the advent of electric vehicles and other technologies like robotics, they are becoming more and more important.
How does Brazil's, I mean, now that, as Steve highlighted, there are so many, and as you highlighted, there's so many different types of rare earths here. So when we talk about what is available, what is actually is in Brazil and how it compares to what China has access to, can you just frame it for us, how the opportunity compares?
Yes, look, when we say that rare earths are not rare, 99% of the deposits in terms of number contain basically the rare earths that have very little value. Those that have very high value are called ionic clays, and that's what China has in their southern border, and also they are present in Myanmar and Vietnam and a little bit in Malaysia. Brazil has exactly the same. No, Brazil and Chile, as a matter of fact, are 2 countries where we have found ionic clays. And these ionic clays have 3 important characteristics. First, the metallurgy, so extracting the rare earths from the clays is very easy and environmentally very sustainable. You just need to put the clays in contact with water and ammonium sulfate, which is a common fertilizer, and you extract them. The second advantage is that they contain the heavy rare earths, which are the most scarcer ones and the most valuable ones. And the third one is rare earths are typically also found with radioactivity, uranium and thorium. But in ionic clays, it's very easy to not concentrate those elements. So essentially, it's negligible. You don't need to worry about radioactivity.